Right, I mentioned about the Toronto waterfront when we first started this particular DVD, and that's what we're going to do now. But what I'm going to do on this one is have a little bit of fun to prove to you that you don't need brushes to paint with acrylics, and neither do you need fancy painting surfaces like canvas or canvas panels, because what we have here is a piece of corrugated cardboard. I've painted it over with a bit of gesso, and I've added a little bit of yellow ochre just to give it a little bit of a tint. The paintbrushes, well, here they are. The pieces of mount card that's used for mounting watercolour paintings. Right, the colours we're going to use, fairly straightforward. Permanent rose, ultramarine blue, raw umber, yellow ochre, and a little bit of cadmium yellow and white. You can see these different views that I've got. I'm going to mix and match. I'm going to do something like this sort of sky, but perhaps not quite so dramatic. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put a piece of masking tape across the picture or across the cardboard about a third of the way up, and that's going to provide our waterline for the main part of the buildings. But the first thing is to get the sky in place, and what I'm going to do with these pieces of card really is to just simply scoop up quite a bit of white and a little bit of blue, particularly at the top, maybe just a little bit of permanent rose here and there. So what we're going to do first off is just drag this paint. You can see you pick quite a little bit of paint up. We don't want it mixed too much, but that's fine so far. If there's any little bits of jagged paint in the sky that you're not too happy with, and just make sure you drag across from one side to the other. We'll let that dry a little bit. Right, as I'm coming down now towards the skyline, the horizon line, I'll get some yellow ochre and white. I'll put some glazing material in. Now this is where you find that the thing has to be worked a little bit. I'm going back into the previous colours I had. I'll pick this up a little bit towards the bottom of the sky area there, because I want to try and see if I can blend these colours a little bit. Right, now you see, rather than squeegeeing the paint on, I'm starting to put in some streaks with not quite the edge of the card, but sideways on with the bottom corner of the card, or the bottom third or so of the card, and that gives us some nice effects in the sky. And I think at this stage I'm actually going to leave it like that. I just want to make sure that I get some dark areas in the top of the sky. Now what I'm going to do is work my way from left to right across the whole waterfront, and again I'm just going to use pieces of card of the appropriate size, and I'm just going to scrape in vertically or horizontally the various skyscrapers that appear in the scene. Okay. Right, now you can see what I've started to do is to create skyscrapers very, very simply. And all I'm doing is putting a fairly strong mix of, in this case, raw umber, ultramarine, a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of white, all mixed together in a fairly random fashion here. I really haven't a clue how this is going to come out. And having got it on the edge of the card, I'm then just going to scrape it and drag it. Right, we'll just add a little bit of blue grey at this point. Oh, that's quite nice, yeah. And we'll have a look. Oh yes, there's a building here. Right, before I put the tower in, I'm just going to create a little bit of a glow in the sky there. So I'm going to take a fresh piece of card, not too big, and I'm going to just take some more white. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is just let everything dry. I'm going to speed things up with the hairdryer, because the thickness of some of this paint, it would be taking ages if I just let it dry at its own pace. And then what I'm going to do is to be using some slightly smaller pieces of card, and I'm just going to go in with some more obvious lights and shades just to give a little bit more form and dimension to some of these buildings. The light's coming from the left hand side, so that's where we're going to work from, and you'll see what happens in a moment. Let's deal with the dark shadow areas where we might need them. We can add some reds and browns and blues, but it's going to be mainly the blue and the brown. You see, I'm using a small piece of card so that we don't get too much unwanted shadow on some of the buildings. We'll run that down like that. Oh, that's nice. It's taking a little bit of line out there. That's lovely. We'll take that. And so the next thing I'm going to do is to change the piece of card, get another piece of card about the same size, and I'm just mixing it now, you can see, with basically white and yellow ochre. So I'll just come into some of these bins. Oh yeah, that's nice. There we are. Some nice white highlights, which if we slide that down and move it across like that. Right, I'm just going to work on the dome now, and what I'm going to do is to first of all just get some blue mixed with the white, because I want that to stand out a bit more against this background sky, giving me some nice lights against darks and so on. Now all it remains for me to do on this part of the picture is to put in the sky tower. And the way we're going to do that is by taking a longer piece of card, and we're going to see if we can get this done in pretty well one go. And I'm reaching for, if you have a look, this mix of white and raw umber. What I'm going to do to start with is just run that down the edge of this piece of card, and what we're going to do now is just assess that the sky tower, the CN tower, is about there, like that. And I'm going to put that at a very, very slight angle like that. Oh yeah, that's fine. Now I'm going to do the same here, but with some white paint. And then we'll just run that like that. Okay, that's probably, I think, going to do us now for the main part of the city. Now what we do is, once this is dried, and it is pretty well nearly dry, I'm going to put a piece of masking tape across the whole of the city centre waterfront so that it's protected to some extent from when we put the paint on here. Right, now you can see that all that I've done is the water exactly the same way as I've done the sky. And that's fine for now. Just get the masking tape off without destroying the whole city. I'm just going to get some dark brown paint, some raw umber and some ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to run that along the waterfront just to reinstate where I need to a little bit of the waterfront buildings. Okay, and let's have a look here. We've got a building here, so we can give ourselves a bit of a reflection there. You notice I'm not at all worried about trying to make it exactly replicate the shape of the building. In fact, if it doesn't replicate it, so much the better, because it it gives that impression of rippled water. Now then, the dome. Let's just clean off this piece of card. I could use a piece of card, but we'll use this, the other side of the other edge of the card. And I'm going to get some white. It's a little bit toned down naturally. You can see again, if I get that white and it's picking up a little bit of that blue-grey effect. Let's just put a little bit of the blue in there. And you can see I'm not trying to do a dome shape other than some highlights coming downwards like that. I'm just going to, this time, I'm just going to run the card through the paint like that. You can see I've got a pretty good dollop of paint on it, and I'm going to make sure as far as possible that that comes first of all as vertical as I can manage, and then another little bit like that. Just drag that sideways very, very slightly, and then I've dragged the same piece of card through the white paint, and this time we're going to just run that up the sky tower like that, and again just dragging it out slightly so that it's less than a perfect reflection. And all that's left to do now is to put a little bit of dirt and foreground here from the island like that. That's it. I'm just trying to get, you see, I'm just trying to get that effect of grass and what have you against the lighter area of the water. That's a bit of a tree trunk just coming in from off picture. And then what we'll use for the green leaves, if we're not going to use any brushes, is to tear very, very thinly little bits of card like that, and just by dabbing that on a little bit, it soon turns into some very believable leaves, and I think we'll pretty well call that it. The whole object was to show you that you can certainly paint a picture in acrylics with anything other than brushes, and in some cases nothing more sophisticated than a scrappy piece of card. And I hope I've shown you how easy that is. Here we've got a waterfront of Toronto, and we've done it on a piece of corrugated cardboard. So let's have you having a go at this and proving to yourself that you don't need all the fancy equipment and materials that the manufacturers would believe that you've really got to have before you get started in acrylics. All you need is some paint and a little bit of enthusiasm and a little bit of desire, and in half an hour or less you can recreate the city of Toronto or the favourite part of your world, wherever you are. There we are. There's Toronto on corrugated cardboard.